10. Harpoon fisher takes a hit to the face. While spending time with friends one day in 2022, a 30-year-old Thai man named Sarat said he wanted to go spearfishing. So he jumped into the Mor Mui Reservoir in the country's Rayong province. But as soon as he started out, his adventure was quickly cut short. He accidentally discharged his harpoon and shot himself straight in the face with a 4-foot-long, 1.2-meter arrow, which pierced through his left cheek and nose. Sarat's friends rushed him 6 miles, 9.6 kilometers, to the hospital in the sidecar of a motorcycle. According to one of his buddies, by the time they arrived, he had lost a majority of his blood and was pale. His pulse was also quickly going down. A hospital spokesperson said that Sarat's harpoon didn't have a safety mechanism on it, and that the weapon may have been triggered by an underwater tree branch. Shortly after the story went public, an update came out saying that Sarat was recovering from his injuries. His reputation as the worst fisherman ever will probably stick with him for life, though. 9. Harpoon spear penetrates pastor's mug. In 2019, South African pastor Connie Hallowell had a decade's worth of spearfishing experience under his belt when he somehow accidentally shot himself in the face. He was fishing off the coastal town of Scottburgh near Durban when a wave suddenly smashed his spear gun into a reef, causing it to discharge. It sent a 5-foot, 1.5-meter arrow in through his cheek and out right through his ear. A nearby fisherman overheard Hallowell screaming for help in the water and quickly came to his aid. He was airlifted to a hospital, where doctors were amazed to discover that the arrow had narrowly managed to miss all the vital organs in his head. Hallowell suffered a minor orbital fracture and slight numbness, but was ultimately expected to make a full recovery. Just 2 days after getting to the hospital, he was discharged. He told the press that he never thought he was going to die. He just knew that he wanted to live no matter what. He also mentioned that he read the Bible as soon as he was given his phone after the accident. 8. World's biggest splinter. In 2018, during what started out as a leisurely paragliding session over a forest, a rope snapped on 36-year-old Ivan Krasowski's paraglider, causing him to lose control of the apparatus and impale himself on a large nearby tree branch. The incident happened close to the village of Loshani in Belarus. Emergency responders were able to cut Krasowski free from the paraglider, but the branch stayed lodged in his shoulder. They rushed him and the branch to the hospital, where doctors eventually were able to remove it. Krasowski told reporters that after he fell, he was initially relieved since he thought he was going to be okay. He then realized there was still a log in his shoulder when he tried to stand up. And while many people would be panicking in his situation, he remained calm and even made a few jokes. Thankfully, he was expected to recover fully. 7. Misbehaving husband pays a painful price. In early 2022, 45-year-old Boon Chui Moo Seaton made a stupid decision to go drinking with his friends instead of staying home with his loving wife, 43-year-old Shanita Quadrum, and cooking dinner for her. He arrived at the couple's home in Buriram, Thailand later that night to discover that Quadrum had stayed up for him. She was absolutely fuming about Moon Seaton's failure to have food on the table for her after she worked long hours all day at her job as a sugarcane collector. Quadrum then allegedly punished her husband of 21 years by spearing his genitals with a harpoon and then twisting them. He was very injured and needed medical attention, but because he was highly intoxicated, he waited until the next day to go to the hospital, where he was quickly given 17 stitches. Before she harpooned her husband, Quadrum reportedly told someone close to her that talking nicely to him is never the solution. Moo Seaton told the local press that he wasn't going to go back home until his wife cooled down. Considering the nature of his injuries, that was probably a good idea. 6. Jabbed with a javelin. Shortly after graduating from high school back in 2016 with plans to pursue sports in college, a young track and field star named Parker Kennedy was invited to compete at the USA Track and Field Meet in Portland, Oregon. He was preparing for the event with a few javelin practice throws when the 8-foot pole, 2.4 meters, landed with its sharp end sticking up. In what can only be described as a crazy freak accident, Kennedy went to remove the javelin from the grass when he somehow tripped and fell forward, smashing his right eye straight into the spear's pointy edge. The javelin plunged so deeply into his skull that he pierced his brain's prefrontal cortex. Someone who witnessed the accident helped Kennedy remove the javelin from his eye, and he was then flown to the hospital. A few days later, his parents announced in a statement that he lost partial vision in his eye and would probably need reconstructive surgery. They described his condition as fair and said he was showing good signs of progress. About 10 months later, Kennedy told Oregon Live that he struggled with depression after the accident. But by the time of the interview, he had made significant improvement both mentally and physically. His vision had started coming back, and he began training again. If the javelin had penetrated much further into Kennedy's brain, he could have had much worse injuries or even died. He was also incredibly lucky that he didn't lose vision in his right eye entirely. 5. Beachgoers impaled by umbrellas. A 46-year-old woman was simply enjoying an afternoon at the beach in Ocean City, Maryland back in 2018 when the wind suddenly blew an umbrella in her direction, plunging it into her chest. She stayed alert and conscious as emergency responders cut part of the umbrella away, leaving the tip still in her chest while they drove her to a helicopter landing site. There, she was picked up by a chopper and flown to the emergency room. The next day, a hospital spokesperson said that the patient was recovering and that she was doing all right. Just a week before the accident, a gust of wind blew an umbrella toward a 67-year-old British tourist named Margaret Reynolds as she was sunbathing on the Jersey Shore. It pierced her ankle, and emergency responders had to remove it with a bolt cutter before they could actually take her to the hospital. A witness told NJ Advance Media that he saw the umbrella blowing across the beach moments before he heard someone screaming out, "My leg! My leg!" Thankfully, Margaret left the hospital in good condition after getting treated for her injuries. It's not uncommon for beachgoers to be hurt by umbrellas, usually because people don't secure them far enough into the sand. There's been at least one fatality at the hands of a beach umbrella. Lottie Michelle Belk was celebrating both her birthday and wedding anniversary at Virginia Beach in 2016 when the wind lifted an umbrella up, then blew it down, sending it right into her torso. She passed away from her injuries. 4. Stick stabs skier's face. In 2017, while working as a ski instructor at Jackson Hole National Park in Wyoming, 29-year-old Natty Hagood often started his shifts with a morning ski run. During one of these routine warm-ups with his roommate and another friend, he skied through some trees. Unfortunately, he came a little too close to one of them. At first, Hagood thought the chin strap of his helmet had shifted on his face. But when he went to move it, he realized there was an 18-inch, 45.7 centimeter tree branch stuck in his face. It entered his lower lip and exited through the corner of his mouth. Hagood somehow stayed calm. As a trained wildlife first responder, he knew his jaw and teeth weren't broken. His cool demeanor allowed him to shorten the branch while he waited for emergency responders. He told the Washington Post that the most painful part of the experience was receiving the numbing shots before doctors cut into his lip and removed the stick. After getting stitches, he was soon healed. During an interview with the Post, Hagood expressed feeling frustrated about how people on social media had nicknamed him a skier bro, implying he was simply careless or irresponsible. He said he was skiing very responsibly. After all, he does it for a living, and that the incident with the tree branch was just a freak accident. 3. Gored by a guardrail. Christina Johns was driving in Elizabeth, Oregon back in 2014 when she looked down at her phone for a split second to make sure a text message had sent properly. At that moment, she crashed her truck into a guardrail. It cut through her truck and then into her thighs and butt. Firefighters had to cut some pieces of the rail away just to get Johns to the hospital. where doctors removed the rest of the metal and stitched her up. She told 9 News that she stopped counting after receiving 40 stitches, and that she had some stitches internally as well. After 4 days in the hospital, she was able to go home. She needed a walker, but was expected to fully recover. The accident taught Johns a lesson about the dangers of texting and driving, even when it involves a quick glance down. She warned others to see her story as a cautionary tale instead of having to learn the hard way. Like she did, that texting and driving isn't worth risking your life. 2. Girl survives golf club through the neck. In 2015, while posing for a quick photo with a friend during her second day at Arkansas State University, 19-year-old Natalie Jo Eaton was impaled by the flyaway shaft of a golf club. A student nearby had used the club to hit a football, causing the club to break in pieces. The shaft flew 30 feet, 9.1 meters, into the air before plummeting toward the ground and lodging itself in Eaton's neck. The teen told My Fox Atlanta that she initially thought someone had struck her in the head with a baseball bat. She knew something was stuck in her neck, though, when she fell to the ground and felt the object scrape against the floor. She wasn't sure if she was going to live, as she laid there helplessly with a perforated spinal cord and pierced artery. Eaton was soon airlifted to the hospital, where she began her long journey to recovery. At first, doctors were unsure whether she would stay permanently paralyzed. Over months of intensive therapy at a spinal rehabilitation center, she managed to relearn basic tasks that most of us take for granted, like simply brushing her hair. It was a lot of hard work, but after 5 months of rehab, Eaton was able to take her first steps since the accident. Her condition continued improving, and thanks to her determination, she was eventually able to get back to her normal life, making her a literal walking miracle. 1. Stationary bike catastrophe. In 2016, the energy and music were dialed up high as 42-year-old Donna Wood got her spin on at a Soul Cycle fitness center in Beverly Hills. At the time, she and her husband were visiting the area from New York for a quick getaway. As she got off her exercise bike, Donna's thigh got caught on a bar that was fixed to the back of the machine. Wood's weight shifted, causing her to lean even harder against the bar as it cut deeper into her leg. She wasn't able to dislodge herself from the support beam and turned to ask the people around her for help. In a lawsuit filed against SoulCycle, Wood claimed that she screamed for help for what felt like forever, but nobody noticed since the music was blaring so loud and the lights were completely off as the class finished up its cool-down segment. After several agonizing minutes, a classmate came to help her. According to court documents filed by Wood's lawyer, nobody else came to her or called an ambulance after noticing she was injured. By then, she claimed she was bleeding profusely and in obvious severe pain. She had taken an Uber to the hospital, where she reportedly received 56 stitches. This incident probably put a damper on the rest of Wood's vacation with her husband. The trip lasted much longer than planned, as Wood stayed laid up in her hotel room until she felt well enough to travel. She spent the entire flight back to New York in excruciating pain, and her troubles got worse when her wound became infected at home. It finally cleared up after undergoing several rounds of antibiotics. But now she's left with a permanent scar. The outcome of her lawsuit against SoulCycle is unclear. Hopefully she received the justice she thinks she deserves. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get impaled in the foot or hand? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.